Good afternoon, everyone. Hope things are well. The setup is looking a lot better today. Anthony Elanga is set to become Newcastle United's first signing of the summer transfer window. On the channel, yesterday we did capture exclusive footage of him arriving at the training ground to complete the first part of his medical. Make sure you go back and watch that video if you haven't done so already, because quite a lot happens in it. And we are here today now with so much Newcastle United transfer news, I don't even know where to begin. We've got so much to get into. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure you get down there and hit that subscribe button. 55% of you watching this video are not subscribed, so make sure you do that. So when we next sign a player, you can see it firsthand on the channel as we capture footage of them arriving into Newcastle, and you'll be the first to know about it. And also, if you enjoy the content, make sure to smash the like button. I feel like it is appropriate to start off with Anthony Elanga first, because I'm sure all of you have questions on what's going to happen to him next. So, as stated before, yesterday he arrived at Newcastle's training ground to complete the first part of his medical. Today will likely be all of the St James's Park stuff. So he'll do his interviews, he'll do all his media work, he'll get all that done throughout the day. So from tomorrow onwards is any time where Newcastle can announce the sign of Elanga. In my opinion, I feel like it's appropriate that on Friday, my guess would be that's perhaps the first day for him as a player. So with our international stars now coming back, I feel like Friday is the correct time to integrate him into the team. And that's when I'm expecting him personally to be a part of Eddie Howe's squad. For more Elanga content, we're going to capture it over the next few days. But for now, going to let the guy complete his medical. We've seen him yesterday. I was very happy with seeing him yesterday, but we'll let him crack on now. And then we'll go back to him once he has been announced as a player. First of many in this window for Newcastle, and it does not stop there. Getting to James Trafford first, because the reports about him over the past 24 hours have been quite surprising now. Craig Hope has stated that there's still an £8 to £10 million valuation gap between what Newcastle was offering Burnley and what Burnley wants for James Trafford. The likes of Luke Edwards have said earlier in the window, this is a 99% done deal. We know James Trafford wants to play for Newcastle now, but Burnley want as much money as possible, and they have not budged. It's at that stage now where 1 week Newcastle will test Burnley again, and if there's not a compromise in there, Newcastle are going to walk away, and Burnley will keep a hold of the goalkeeper. So it's two teams that are not budging. Now, I would argue, although I think Newcastle does need a goalkeeper in this window, it's not one of our main priorities, and I don't think there is anything stopping Newcastle from just waiting it out now and then going back in a year's time when Burnley are most likely relegated. The probability is against them, and I would expect Burnley to go back down. So there's nothing stopping Newcastle from going next summer and just signing the goalkeeper anyway. If Clay wants to play for Newcastle, we can just go next summer where it'll cost us a lot less money. So I don't think Burnley has the bargaining and negotiation skills now to be able to really test Newcastle. We know the player wants to join Newcastle. In their best interest, you're not going to keep a hold of a player who doesn't want to be there. Now, I know Burnley want a lot of money from Newcastle. We've already seen it with Forest in this window. Newcastle bid 45 and 50 million pounds previously for Elanga, said no both times, and then they were able to squeeze 55 million out of Newcastle. So it is possible for these teams to get more money out of us, and I think Burnley again will test Newcastle. In my opinion, I think there will be a compromise. I think Burnley will drop the valuation a little bit. I think Newcastle may have to pay a little bit more money than what they want, but I reckon both teams can get to a conclusion. And I feel like this deal, although doesn't sound to be as close as things have been suggested in social media, I'm still fairly confident we'll complete this deal. I think we will. But, of course, if it doesn't happen this summer, I think Newcastle will be knocking on that door next summer to complete this one. And speaking of Craig Hope, he's also claimed that Newcastle is now targeting Ollie Watkins and Wissa from Brentford to actually come in as that number 2 striker. In terms of transfer targets, by the way, as a backup striker, they're pretty bloody good. Definitely better than the Dominic Calvert-Lewin links we've been getting a couple of days ago. I would 100% take one of these as a backup option. Now, first problem being Ollie Watkins. Surely Ollie Watkins does not join Newcastle as a number 2. Villa themselves had this issue last season when they had Duran and Watkins. They didn't know which one to play. Watkins wasn't happy that Duran was playing ahead of him. Duran, of course, was then sold to the Saudi League. Watkins was able to get that game time. Both of the players here destroyed us last season. Both of those players dropped man-of-match performances against us last season. Top quality. Watkins, I'll probably prefer more out of the two players, but Watkins, I think is unrealistic. I just don't think we would get him. Wissa is more realistic, but again, with Brian and Bruno going out the door, Brentford won't want to sell two top attacking players in the same window. So in that respect, I would say that's a hard deal as well. But if you're somehow able to get one of these two, what a deal that would be. Issue perhaps 12 months from now would be if you're signing one of these players as number 2 striker, it would also kind of tell me that Isak, or at least Newcastle feels like Isak will probably be off next summer because again, you're just not going to sign that sort of quality as a number 2 striker. So if one of them was to come in this window, especially for next summer, I'll be a bit nervous about Isak because it almost comes across like Newcastle's preparing to make sure we can deal without him going forward. Obviously, it won't happen this year, but next year it seems to be the summer where we could have that serious conversation about him potentially leaving the football club. As for options go, both of them I would take in a heartbeat. As for players going out the door, we'll start off with Sean Longstaff. Seems to be sorted out for £12 million. Leeds, by the way, any Leeds fans watching this video, you've got a cracking deal for £12 million. I think deep down, they know Longstaff has 12 months left in his contract. I don't think Sean Longstaff's made it a secret that he wants first team football. He's no longer going to get that in Newcastle, so it's kind of like, sell me now or next summer I'll go on a free. And Longstaff's been very honest and said that on the PSR laws, you guys can sell me now. We'll get a lot of money, pure profit as well. Just get it done for the best interest of the football club and I can play first team football somewhere else. Longstaff, what a legend he is. But in terms of Leeds, £12 million seems to be low perhaps in our valuation. But again, there's not a lot of demand for Longstaff. You're not going to get much more money for him in this transfer window. Although £12 million may be cheap for him, that's also £12 million we wouldn't have got next summer. So Newcastle, again, just needs to get somebody to prevent this PSR issue down the line. Good deal for Leeds. They've done well. I think we've got a good sale out of this. I think everyone could walk away from this transfer being happy. Now, as for Manchester City, they want Tino Livramento, and it does not matter how much money they offer. They could dump £165 million down for Tino Livramento, and Newcastle would still say no. That is our stance, especially on our young fullbacks. Livramento, no. Hall, no. There is not a price on this planet that would bring those players out of Newcastle, and that is our stance on the matter. Good choice, especially Livramento. Oh my God. Livramento, the right back signing, seems to be better, in my opinion, on the left. How could he be good in two separate positions? And how could he even be better in the position that we didn't sign in? Honestly, his versatility is just incredible. I love Livramento and I love Hall. And I love this stance as well from Newcastle. We are not budging to City. They've got a lot of money. You want a guy like Livramento, you got to pay world record fees to bring him in. And that's Newcastle's take on the matter. He will not go anywhere in this summer. And especially in the player point of view as well, of how young they are, still developing under Eddie Howe. It's in their best interest to stay as well, so it's just a no-go. City are not going to get him no matter what in this window, and I'm very pleased to say that. There's been a lot of transfer activity today surrounding Marc, a player who hasn't been linked to Newcastle for a little while now. And for me, on a personal level, I've stopped talking about the guy for a couple of weeks. Well, Liverpool at one stage looked like they were bang on signing Marc, heavy links towards the player. And that's quieted up over the last couple of weeks. And when Newcastle is looking to bring a centre half in, we know Marc was a player Newcastle wanted last summer. Again, in this window, we know Marc is a player Newcastle is interested in. And it's been quite quiet from Liverpool. There's just been no transfer speculation or news surrounding the player. And I wouldn't say Newcastle's completely out of this deal now. I wouldn't say I'm confident we're going to sign him either, but I would certainly keep an eye on this one. I think Marc still has a little bit of leg room towards it, and I wanted to start that conversation now because he's still a player I 100% would be excited for. We know this is a player that's a young, progressing, experienced Premier League centre-half who has a lot to offer and, of course, would help out with Botman, especially a player that we know has had a bit of an injury issue over the past couple of years. Burning Shaw, as much as we love them, are both in their 30s now, so we do need at least one centre-half in this window. Marc, if he is available, which looks like he is, certainly a signing which would do well in Newcastle. So let's keep an eye on this one because despite the heavy links to Liverpool, quieted up quite a lot, so perhaps Newcastle does potentially have something to work with here, and I'd love to see what happens in this window in regards to potentially bringing him in. We talked about Leeds before in regards to Sean Longstaff, but they're also interested in signing Nick Pope now. Nick Pope It's a tricky one. I feel like, especially with how many goalkeepers we've already got, not to mention, we've got about 8 goalkeepers, and yet none of them get close, with the exception of Dubravka, to get ahead of Nick Pope. Now, Nick Pope seems to be quite perhaps a controversial keeper amongst Newcastle fans. I'm a Nick Pope defender. I think he's very good. I think his shot stopping's great. Yes, okay, his kicking's a bit of a mess, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as he used to be. I don't think he's the best goalkeeper out there. And I feel like if you were to compare him with, I guess, Premier League teams that are, I guess, anywhere mid-table. Of course, Pickford, that's not even a mid-table team. You look at a guy like Pickford, he is better than Nick Pope. Palace, for example, got Dean Henderson, and while I would say Nick Pope's better than Dean Henderson, again, you look at a team like Brentford, they've got Flecken. I think Flecken's much better than Nick Pope. Burnley, of course, we won James Trafford. He's one for the future. So when you look at all the different goalkeepers across the Premier League, I still think Nick Pope's probably around the middle range to perhaps bottom half of the entire list. And for where Newcastle are now, you're talking a top 5 team. Just isn't the top 5 best goalkeepers in the Premier League if you're going to go off that logic. So I can understand fans that want a better goalkeeper in, but I still like Nick Pope quite a lot. I feel like at least one more season you stick with him. We'll have this conversation next summer if things haven't went too well for him, but I'm confident in him now. I was happy with him last season. I enjoyed his performances for the most part last season. I feel like he can still do the job at Newcastle. Leeds are interested. I don't think it's going to go much further than that. I don't see Leeds bring them in. Ambitious from them, but the reality is Newcastle's just not going to sell Nick Pope. I don't see it happening this window. But walking out from this video, we've got a lot of options we need to look at. Keith Downey claims that striker is going to be the next option, which makes the most sense. Callum Wilson, of course, out the door now. One striker left in Isak. We need to heavily invest in that area. After that, need a centre midfielder for the short Longstaff replacement. Still need the goalkeeper situation sorted. Still need the centre half situation sorted, and perhaps maybe an arse signing in there when Newcastle are going to be quite busy for the next couple of weeks. Again, before the start of pre-season, over the next 7 days or so, is when Newcastle needs to land some deals if Eddie Howe is then able to get the players in as soon as possible. But regardless of what happens, we have one through the door with Anthony Elanga. That is certainly an upgrade compared to the last couple of summer transfer windows we've had, and it's going to be a lot busier from here on out. I like the names we've been linked with. I think there's a lot of ambitious names that we've been linked with on social media. Some stinkers as well, which I'm sure you guys will know about. But very pleased with the news. I can't wait to see what Newcastle does next. I think Newcastle, because of the fact we've got one player through the door, I think we're going to loosen it out a little bit. I think Newcastle will be a bit calmer on bringing deals in. I think Newcastle will be able to, well, I wouldn't say slowly get a deal in. I think we will just take our time with it. We don't need to rush it now. We've got a major signing through. I think we'll do a lot more. But now that one is through the door, we can just relax a little bit and just make sure we take it one step at a time. But in regards to what you guys think, let me know in the comments section what transfer targets that we've been linked with do you like? What ones do you want to bring in? A lot of good ones out there, and we've mentioned some good ones in this video. So would you take anyone that I've mentioned so far? Let me know. Take care, and we'll see you all in the next one.